we are coming off of the biggest snooze fest of the year so far, but we are hot on the heels of UFC 259, almost surefire guaranteed to give us fireworks. Hello and welcome to the Golden Octagon MMA Podcast, number 9. I am Matt Anderson. On the right side of your screen, some of you may know him as the man with the child in the background that's always screaming, as the man that drops his camera mid-feed during the show, but I know him as this week's reigning, defending Golden Octagon pick champ. Dorian Rose is on the right. How you doing today, my man?
We're doing good, and yeah, I had the same exact thoughts on the fight card from last weekend, man. That was definitely a letdown to say the least, but man, I'm so freaking pumped for this weekend, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Definitely. It's going to be a crazy weekend of fights. UFC 259. There's 3 title fights, guys. I can't wait. We'll talk about Dorian's thoughts later on the show. But just before we get started, let me give you guys a quick rundown on what we are going to talk about on today's show. So up first, we are going to go over this past weekend's card. Me and Dorian both said it was a snoozer card, not a whole lot, but there are some key factors that we just do want to talk about. Then we will be talking about all the news and just fight talk that has happened this past week. I'm actually kind of glad that we didn't do the video Sunday because there's been a lot that's happened in these past few days. We didn't do the video Sunday because the card was just awful and I really didn't want to talk about it Sunday, and my batteries were dead. There was just so much going on. But anyway, after we talk about our news and just that things of sorts like that, we are going to be jumping into the meat and potatoes of the video, UFC 259 breakdown. As I said in the intro, 3 title fights. We've got Israel Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz, Amanda Nunes versus Megan Anderson, and the third title fight on there is Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. It's going to be a stacked card, so that's what we are going to be spending the majority of our time on today. And then finally, we have a new segment on this show, the WTF moment of the week. This is where I'm going to ask Dorian a question that he has no idea. It could be about anything, and he has to answer this question. So it is going to be an interesting topic, but we are going to save that for last. But that is what we are going to be talking about in today's show. Before we get started though, please put a thumbs up on this video, show your support. I really do appreciate it. Dorian appreciates it. We just really enjoy it when you show us that you enjoy what we are doing. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, what on earth are you doing? It's so easy. Click that little red button right down there at the bottom of your screen. That is all that we ask. But that is all. So let's jump in to the first topic on today's show. UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Gane. Let's talk about it for a second. You're yawning right now. It was definitely just not a good night of fights. The fights kept falling out. The fight started late, and pretty much every single fight went to decision on the card. Really nothing too exciting happening in the fight overall. But let's just talk about the main event for just a second. Jairzinho Rozenstruik versus Ciryl Gane. I feel like Ciryl Gane is kind of getting a lot of hate on his performance, but at the same time, dude looked good. There's nothing else to say. He looked quick. He kept his distance. He looked fantastic for 7 fights in his pro career. Like, that's just all that I'm saying. He got a lot of heat for not doing anything, but to me personally, I put that blame on Jairzinho 100%. This dude, he had to have thrown less than 20 punches all 5 rounds of the fight, and it just didn't seem... I don't know what was happening, but that being said, a round of applause to Ciryl Gane. I think that he did a good job overall. Give me your thoughts on this fight, Dorian.
Yeah, and one of the things I said going into the fight was, I thought that Rozenstruik had fought at a higher level for a little bit longer than what Ciryl Gane has. And Ciryl Gane, displayed his skill set that, that can give a lot of the top guys problems. But I do think, I remember coming in last week, I said that, it was crazy to see that Rozenstruik was as big as the underdog as he was. But as the fight played out, it honestly played out perfectly to the betting line that, Ciryl Gane was a pretty heavy favorite going into it, and the whole fight played out that way. He dominated all 5 rounds. He was able to keep the distance and was able to land the strikes that he needed to. And I am in a complete agreement with you that, when you're Rosenstrike, man, like you have to do something. Like, I know he was getting frustrated because every time he would kind of get in on Ciryl Gane, Gane would go for either the clinch or he was able to just get out of the way if Rosenstrike was to step in. But we didn't really see too many of those opportunities from Rosenstrike to do that. He didn't really put the foot to the gas. He didn't, put himself in harm's way. And not to say that that's the easiest thing to do, but it was very clear going into the later rounds in the fight that Ciryl Gane was pitching a shutout against Rosenstrike. And I think that, it ultimately, as the fight waned, it was his blame that, the fight ended up turning out that way, because he has to do something to change the results. Otherwise, Ciryl Gane's going to keep doing what he has to do. So I can't necessarily blame that fight being a little bit of a snooze fest completely on Ciryl Gane, because he's doing what Rosenstrike is allowing him to do, which is stand at range and just pick him apart. And if he could take him down, cool. If not, he'll just stand outside and jab you and leg kick you. And that's exactly what he did. And Rosenstrike it just seemed like he had no sense of urgency in the whole fight. And Ciryl Gane he wasn't going to put himself in harm's way if he didn't have to. So he just coasted to an easy win, and that's how the fight played out.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me was how quick Ciryl Gane is for being such a massive dude. Like, he's got decent footwork. He's quick, as I said, and he pretty much won that fight on jabs and leg kicks. Like, it's just he was just keeping at his distance and just doing exactly what he needed to do, to win that fight. And so that being said, hats off to him, man. He pretty much won that fight hands down, no discussion at all. Anything else on that fight, Dorian, or are you good on the main event?
No, I'm getting sleepy already. So I think
exactly.
I had about enough of that.
I do want to talk about 2 other fights on that card. One being Bruce Leroy versus Kevin Croom. You picked Kevin Croom in this fight. To me, his antics, I just don't. The comb and the flip and the stick. Come on, guy. Find something else. You got to find something else. And you got the brakes beat off you. I don't know. I was talking to quite a few people that were heavy on Kevin Croom here, and I just didn't see it. And here's my reason why. They're roughly the same age. At this point, can't really factor in too much, but if you look at their professional career and how long Bruce Leroy has been in the UFC and how long Kevin Croom has been in the UFC, that was Kevin Croom's second fight in the UFC. Bruce Leroy, I remember him on Tough way back in the day. He's been in the UFC for so long now, and that specifically, I was like, this isn't a young up-and-comer dude. This is an older guy. I picked Bruce Leroy. I was heavy on Bruce Leroy. That's what I said. He pretty much beat the brakes off of Kevin Croom all 3 rounds. I don't know if Kevin Croom just kept trying to shoot on him and it wasn't even close. It gave me memories of, I don't want to go too far here because I did message you in this fight and you said don't ever say that again. Do you remember when Derek Brunson kept trying to take Israel Adesanya down and it was just like, bro, what are you doing? You're not getting it. Stop. And was just getting pieced up over and over. It was almost to that point I was like, man, Kevin Croom literally has no other plan, and I'm glad that I'm able to jog this back through because during the fight in the second round, or after the first round in the corner, James Krause, Dorian's favorite coach, was telling Kevin Croom, you need to be confident, get in the pocket, just trust your confidence, you got this. When that second round started and Bruce Leroy started piecing Kevin Croom up right in the pocket, Michael Bisping had the funniest line. He yells 2 times, Abandoned confidence. Abandoned confidence. I was laughing so hard at that point. Shout out to Bruce Leroy. Do you have anything to say about this fight, Dorian?
Yeah, well, it was obvious that, I think that was a good comparison you had made for Israel versus Brunson when he kept going for the takedowns. And it was clear, like, after that first round, after he wasn't able to get those takedowns, that his arms were gassed because he was literally walking into punches from Bruce Leroy. Like, he was trying to lift his arms. It looked like he had absolutely no pop in his punches whatsoever. And Bruce Leroy was able to, pick him apart and kind of dismantle him. And you could see although Kevin Croom has more fights than Bruce Leroy does, Alex Caceres, you could see the UFC experience play out for Alex Caceres. And I think that's what got him the win.
Definitely. An interesting fight. It was a good performance by Bruce Leroy. The last fight that I honestly just want to talk about on this card was the main event of the prelims. Alexander Hernandez versus Thiago Moises. I thought it was clear Thiago was won every round of that fight. He was doing like the classic fight me at the end of the third round. But with reason. He had won 2 rounds and he was literally trying to stand and bang the last minute of the third round, and Alexander Hernandez wanted no part of it at all. So when the judges announced the scorecards and Thiago Moises was the winner, Alexander Hernandez, I believe it's Mark Montoya, went over to Bruce Buffer to check if they announced the right name. They really thought they won that fight. I don't know what eyes they were looking through, what kind of glasses they were watching, but man, can you believe Alexander Hernandez and his coach thought that he won that fight?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty clear that Moises, that he had won the fight as well, and I thought he had landed the more significant strikes. And I mean, I guess if you're in Alex Hernandez's position, I guess, in his defense, he has to act like he won the fight. If he's walking around acting like he lost the fight, the judges are probably going to, give Moises the fight anyway. But I know one of the things they say is at the end of rounds, especially at the end of the fight, you walk around and put your hands up in the air as if you did win to kind of put your stamp on the round and everything. But Hernandez, for him and Mark Montoya to be kind of looking at the, Bruce Buffer's card and stuff like that. I mean, I thought that was a little bit ridiculous. And, it was clear he lost the fight. And I know they made a big stink about it and everything, but for no real reason. I thought it was clear that he had lost all 3 rounds, honestly.
And then after the fight, Thiago Moises having the huevos to call out future champion Rafael Fiziev. That would be a fight I would be interested in. The way Moises looked at the end of round 3, he looked good. His striking, I don't know. Fiziev is on another level. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. But we're just going to move on to our next topic, just the news and other fight talk. There's been a lot that has gone on in this past week, Dorian. Starting just off the top, I believe it was last Saturday or Sunday, Khamzat Chimiev posted that he was going to be ready to fight in June or July with a picture of Dana White. I'm not sure if I messaged you this or I took a screenshot of it, but either way, it was a plan to talk about it on the show. 2 days later, Khamzat Chimiev on his Instagram puts out this long post saying that he is retiring from MMA, that he's done. About 2 minutes later, posted a picture of a sink full of blood, like he had coughed up blood. COVID is really affecting Khamzat, and it's sad because this, other than Kevin Holland, the biggest prospect out of 2020, hands down. There's no other competition other than the Trailblazer. But I don't know what to think about this. But after he said that, about 2-3 hours later, Dana White comes out and said, "Hey, I don't know what this guy's talking about. He's on steroids for his lungs. He should be at home relaxing, and he went to the gym and is training. So he's trying to be a savage and train, but he's on antibiotics and these things to kill COVID, but in turn also kills your immune system and all the drive you have for anything. So that being said, Dana White said that he's not going anywhere. And one final nugget, the leader or the president of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, tweeted that, I don't know if you know how it works there, but the president there kind of is like, you're going to do what he says type thing. It's not really
a dictator type.
Yeah, not really a free place. He said, come on, Khamzat, you want to do this for the country. Don't let us down. You want to do this, don't you? It was almost like something like that. So I personally do believe Khamzat will fight again. Prednisone is a steroid that can really mess with your mind. There's tons of stories on people having mental issues after taking this, to kill whatever they're on, strep throat, any infection like that. People take this. It's widely prescribed, but it has effects of there's people known to scratch their face, there's something under their face. There's people that think people are out to get them. And I guess Khamzat, just emotional, just tweeted that he's done. He's not doing anymore. So hopefully the effects of this are causing this. Hopefully Khamzat is not done. We believe in Boris. What do you think about this, Dorian? I've been talking for a few minutes now.
Yeah, well, I know that you're going to be very emotional talking about that because I know that, Khamzat's your boy. So, you smish. So I know that's your guy. But I do think ultimately that he's going to end up fighting again. The thing that I don't really like as much is, I appreciate Dana from a sense saying that, maybe he's just a little bit emotional because of where he's taking the medicine and we're treating him and those things, but kind of putting the timestamp on when he's going to return. He's coming back, he's going to return at X date. I think we need to more focus on, making sure that he's going to be okay throughout this whole process because hasn't he had it, it was a month ago that he has had it?
It's been a while now that he's had it, multiple months now.
Yeah, it's been about a month or two. So, yeah, he's kind of, he had tested positive a while ago, and he's still having lingering effects from the virus in the first place. So it's just crazy that, they're trying to put a timestamp on when he's going to return. And then, of course, just how terrible, Ramzan Kadyrov, to say that, you got to stand for your people and don't you want to do it for the people? And to put that type of pressure on someone like that, knowing, what he's going through right now. I just hate that, people in his life are kind of, forcing him to this point. I think he also got emotional and made that post as well because I could absolutely understand, him feeling that way because, he wants to get at it. He was supposed to be busy for a good little bit and, he's been getting pushed back a lot now. And, it's nothing due to his own fault. It's just the virus that's been getting a hold of a lot of people. And I know that, there are multiple NFL players, Myles Garrett for the Cleveland Browns. He was one of the guys as well that said, COVID had a long effect on him, well after he had it, and it messed with his breathing a little bit as well. Even later into the season, much longer after he was first positive for it. So I think Khamzat's going through a little bit of the same stuff right now, and not to say that he can't return because I think he will, but just take the angle of, people trying to peer pressure him into going back. If he ultimately feels like he can't do it, then, I don't need anybody trying to push him the other way and make him do something that, he doesn't really want to do. And I didn't really like that angle too much at all from, of course, Kadyrov and then Dana as well, kind of putting a timestamp on it.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest thing is to get this man healthy. Let's not be trying to push him to fight, put dates on anything yet. We just want this guy just healthy. This guy is one of my favorites of this past year, hands down, a spectacle to watch in my opinion. But we all wish Khamzat the best. Get well, Khamzat. Moving right along, Dorian. Dan Hardy. Dan Hardy is looking to come back to fight. He called out Matt Brown. Matt Brown is now scheduled. He called out Nick Diaz. That would honestly be kind of interesting. Neither one of them have fought in a long time. Dan Hardy, UFC commentator, for those of you who don't know, used to fight pretty good. He lost to GSP. Hasn't really done much since. Stepped away from the sport, but he is looking to come back. He's a great analyst. I'm interested to see how he looks. Who would you like to see Dan Hardy make his return fight against, Dorian?
Well, I mean, we're kind of in a position where it's tough to kind of root for him to come back, because one of the reasons why he left was a heart condition that he had. It was a serious ailment. I remember it was something with his heart that made him step away from the game in the first place. I think that it would be tough for me to see him come back. I know that he's been kind of hinting at it for the last few years about him making a comeback, but of course, it never came to light just yet. But it seems like he wants to, but I just don't know if physically he would be capable of it. But I do think, possibly, like a Matt Brown fight. I know Matt Brown's booked right now, but that doesn't mean that, you can't make that fight happen afterwards, or maybe even a rematch with Carlos Condit. You can run that fight because, two fighters, those are two fighters of a different era. I don't need to see Dan Hardy, going in there against elite welterweights. I don't need to see him fighting Colby Covington. I don't need to see him fighting Gilbert Burns. I don't need to see him fighting Leon Edwards or any of those guys. I think if you do bring him back, you got to matchmake him the right way. So I'm thinking guys potentially like that. I know he said also I think he called on Nick Diaz as well. So I think you could possibly match up with Nick Diaz, Carlos Condit, maybe even a Robbie Lawler, something. One of those guys, ones that were from the previous era, sort of, in there at the same time that he was. And if you want to do kind of like these one-off matchups, and against the right person, I'd like to see it. But if they're trying to bring him back against like some type of contender or something like that, I really don't need to see it.
Yeah, definitely. I would enjoy seeing Dan Hardy in exactly what you said. Just these fun fights with like fighters that are still around from his generation. I love Dan Hardy, the outlaw. Hopefully he brings the red mohawk back. I was a fan of it. I don't know if you were. He is kind of older now, so I don't know if a red mohawk would fit a guy almost 40. But anyway, that's pretty much all of the news for the week that I just kind of wanted to talk about. So we will go ahead and move on to the next topic of the week, the fireworks that we all want to talk about. UFC 259. Before we get started on this though, 1 second. You told me that you don't like 3 title fights on a card. So before we talk about this card in detail, let me know why you don't like these 3 title fight cards. You didn't know I was going to ask you, did you? I was setting it up. I was setting it.
Yeah, no, I didn't. That was very Rajon Rondo like. He set that up very
Finesse.
Well. But yes, absolutely. But yeah, no, and I can't say looking at the card this weekend that it's not an absolutely stacked card, because it is, and I actually like all the title fights. Well, the Megan Anderson, Amanda Nunes fight, Amanda Nunes is Amanda Nunes, but other than that, as far as matchup-wise, especially with Peter Yan and Sterling, those matchups are great. I'm looking at it in more of a bigger picture sense. One of the things that I don't like about the title fights is 3 title fights on one card. Man, it can really drag out a card. It can really drag out a card, man. I mean, you're talking about, if you end up having, and I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but a lot of times at the highest levels of MMA, each guy is going to be very calculated. Each guy and each woman is going to be very calculated in terms of the moves that they're going to make.
Especially
they're not
in
going
a
to
title
make,
fight.
Yes, especially in a title fight, because the title is what's at stake. It's not just a random one-off fight or anything like that. So the fighter is going to make the best decision possible. Not every time, but sometimes that can result in these sort of calculated, technical, sometimes slower paced fights.
For
And
example,
sometimes if you're looking at
Till versus Rob Whittaker. It was a good fight, but it was just, if you don't know what you're watching, you could be like, this is boring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'll tell you, one of the fights that had, or one of the cards that had 3 title fights on it wasn't it the Usman and Masvidal card last summer when it was Jan versus Aldo, then it was Max versus Volkanovski, and then it was Usman versus Masvidal. And I'll tell you, those fights, they were great fights in itself, but each fight went 5 rounds. And that fight card, look, I might be a little bit East Coast biased, sure, but man, that fight card went on until about 2 in the morning, and I was absolutely worn out. And if you end up getting, you have the type of fighters matched up into where that could happen, and each fight goes 5 rounds, and that's going to drag out the night completely. And honestly, yes, it's a little bit of East Coast bias, but I'm going to be struggling staying awake towards the main event if the fights aren't that exciting in itself. So that's one of the reasons why I don't like it. And I think as far as schedule-wise for the UFC, I think it really jams them up in terms of scheduling title fights later down the road, because you have 3 title fights hung up right now, and then one of them is a champion that is in a champ in 2 weight classes with Amanda Nunes, and then you have the middleweight champ going up to fight for the 205 belt. So I understand you're making the juicy matchups and you're making the stacked cards, but I think in terms of the UFC scheduling, more solid cards down the road later in the year, putting 3 title fights on one card, I think that really jams them up, because, of course, the pay-per-view headliner is going to be a title fight, unless it's going to be a McGregor fight or something like that. It's going to be a title fight 9 times out of 10, and you want to make sure that all your champions aren't tied up on one card, so that way you can proportion the title fights out later in the year with a little bit ease. Because I know sometimes, some of these title fights have been getting taken on short notice. I know Dominic Reyes got kind of blindsided, been taking that Jan Blachowicz fight last September. He said he took the fight on 6 weeks' notice, and it's just because they were just randomly throwing a card together. And I know it's the COVID times now, so they're kind of working on the fly. But at the same time, I think that, you're letting these fighters know, short notice about the pay-per-view need to be filled, because you're tying up 3 title fights on one card. So as much as I love all the matchups this weekend, I love that it's a stacked card. It's absolutely going to be worth my money, so I'm definitely buying it this weekend. So I'm not saying in terms of the matchups I don't like it, but in terms of the time of the card that it takes, and then for scheduling good pay-per-view cards throughout the year, I think it really jams those 2 things up.
Okay, so I see your point. Me personally, I couldn't care less. Take my money. The more fights, the better fights. The better for me. I enjoy it. I almost feel like titles, like pay-per-views, doesn't really matter that much. Like, at the end of the day, the UFC is going to keep rolling. They're going to figure it out. They did this for a reason. I think mainly is to get some of the shine on the 135-pound men's division and the 145-pound women's division. Because right now, 145 doesn't even have rankings. There's, four girls in the division? Not too much.
Okay.
And I believe that the UFC is banking on 135 being their new premier division. The talent at 135 is crazy at this point. There's so many up-and-coming fighters. There's so many good fighters. It's a great division. So I think that is their thought process on that. But, so, you gave me your thoughts on why you don't like this being 3 title fight, or you gave me your thoughts on why you don't like 3 title fight cards, but you're not going to complain at Izzy card with 2 other title fights on there, Amanda and the 135 strap as well. That'll lead us perfectly into the main topic of the week, the meat and potatoes, what everyone wants to hear about, UFC 259. I'm going to give you a rundown of the card real quick. We got Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya coming up from 185 to challenge for the 205-pound champion that Jan Blachowicz is carrying. Then we've got Amanda Nunes going up against Megan Anderson. Megan Anderson challenging for the 145-pound women's championship belt. And then the third title fight on the card, Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. Peter Yan carrying the strap, Aljamain trying to bring the strap back to New York. Islam Makhachev going up against Drew Dober. It's going to be a tough night for Drew Dober, in my opinion. And then we've got a banger to start off the main card. Thiago Santos versus Alexander Rakic. So before we make our picks for this card, Dorian, we just need to talk about our last week's pick real quick. We don't got to talk about this for too long because we all know that last week's card was a snoozer. We've been saying it. So overall last week, Dorian, you had Jairzinho Rozenstruik, Magomed Ankalaev, Mario Bueno Silva, Randy Brown versus Alex Oliveira. Didn't even happen, so we'll toss that one out. And then you had Kevin Kroom getting it done over Alex Caceres. So that belt right now, Dorian, guess what? Start warming it up, because guess what? My picks last week. Oh, so that being said, you only had one correct pick the whole card, Dorian. The whole night. My picks, I picked Cyril Gane. I didn't think that he would have been the underdog, but he was. I mean, I didn't think that he was going to be the favorite, but he really was and showed why. Cyril Gane really got it done over Rozenstruik. I picked Ankalaev, barely edged it out over Krylov. We should have talked about that one, but it's okay because it was an overall pretty boring fight. I did pick Montana De La Rosa over Bueno Silva, but this fight was a tie, so, you know. Randy Brown fight didn't happen. And Alex Caceres, I picked him to be over Kevin Kroom. So that means, me personally, I got 3 picks. That's Gane, Ankalaev, and Cowboy, as a Cowboy, and Alex Caceres. So that means it's time for you to hand it over. Hand me the Golden Octagon. I'm the pick champ for the week, at least for a few days, until we move on to next week. Here we go, Dorian. You see all the fights on the main card. Let me know your picks before we start talking about the card itself.
You want to go over the whole main card?
Just the main card, the top 5 fights. Izzy,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I think I'm gonna start from the bottom and work up.
Okay.
So I think Rakic versus Santos. I do think that's a hell of a fight. I do think that Rakic is probably going to be able to win the fight, and we'll dive into it as we go. But let's go Rakic. Give me Makhachev. Give me Sterling, Nunes, and Stylebender.
Oh my goodness, Dorian. Oh my goodness. You took my picks, man. All right, so cool. Let me change it up just a little bit. Oh, wow. Those are pretty much
You know what?
Those are my picks,
give
man.
Give me Santos.
Huh?
Give me Santos.
You're going to get Santos. All right, you take Santos.
Yeah,
give
me Santos.
I'll take Megan Anderson, and I will take Alexander Rakic. Just to spice it up just a little bit. So there's some change there. Man, that is wild. Yeah, I will go Israel Adesanya.
You know what? No. I'll spice it up even more for you because I'm actually feeling. I went Makhachev just because the what if, but he actually has been knocked out in the UFC before. I think Drew Dober is as live of a dog as you can be because I think he's got a lot of potential. You know, he's riding a big winning streak right now. Actually, let me go ahead, and I'm actually going to put a little bit of money on this on the weekend anyway.
All right, so hold on. time out. Let's just restart here before we jump all into like you talking about like the fights like and all that. So just give me your 5 fighters that you're going for right now. So I don't get. I'm going to confuse this. I'm going to have the X's on all over the wrong fighters. So let me know right now. Give me your 5 fighters.
Give me. Okay, and I'll write this down as well. Give me Thiago Santos.
Okay.
I'm going to take him. I think he's going to have the ability to knock Rakic out. I think Drew Dober is alive as a dog as they could be. Give me Drew Dober. I'm going to go ahead with Sterling. Give me Nunes, and then give me Stylebender.
Okay, cool. So you do think that there are going to be 2 titles change hands Saturday. You think Aljamain Sterling is going to win it over from Peter Yan, and you think Israel Adesanya is going to become the next double champ of the UFC. I agree with you. My picks, I'm going Alexander Rakic, Islam Makhachev. I believe this guy has what it takes to be the champion at 155. I'm going Aljamain Sterling over Petr Yan. I'm going for the upset. Megan Anderson is massive. And for some reason, I love picking against Amanda Nunes. She is the female GOAT, hands down. But for some reason, I have this thing. The UFC sells me on it every time. I believe that Megan Anderson is Amanda Nunes' toughest test to this date. But we'll talk about that more in just 1 second. And then Israel Adesanya, I do believe that he is going to snatch that off the head. I believe he's going to snatch the crown off the head of Jan Blachowicz for that 205-pound division. So that is my picks. Izzy, Megan Anderson, Sterling, Islam Makhachev, and Alexander Rakic. That is going to be my picks. All right, Dorian. So let's before we start talking about like these main cards for just 1 second. There are 15 fights on this card. 3 title fights, 12 non-title fights. There's 6 fights on the early prelims. Not really too much going on there. Let's see. Do I really? Couple contender series guys. Alon Cruz came off the contender series. Got to watch out for. Sean Brady. Got to watch out for. He's got hands. The return of Carlos Ulberg, a teammate of Izzy Adesanya, definitely a great
contender series as well. Great
contender to watch out for. On the prelims, we've got another Izzy teammate, Kai Kara-France, going up against Rodrigo Bontorin. I've never seen that guy fight before. I have seen Kai Kara-France fight before. Last fight, he was going up against a guy that did not make weight, and Izzy was not happy about him fighting the guy that did not make weight, and he let Dana White know there at the end. We've got the return of the future 125-pound division here. The future champion himself, Askar Askarov, going up against Joey Benavidez, man. I don't know, man. I don't know. I believe Askar Askarov is probably going to demolish Joey B, man. Joey's just older. You just saw him get knocked out twice against Davison Figueiredo. Askar Askarov is this new up-and-coming kid. A lot of people think that he is going to be the champion one day, me included. The dude just will take you down 20 times in a fight. The amount of energy that takes, definitely going to be an interesting fight. And then the main fight on the prelims, going to be an interesting one. Dominic the Dominator Cruz going up against Casey Kenny. Anything on the prelims that you want to talk about real quick before we jump to the main card, Dorian?
I do think the Kai Kara-France fight might be pretty interesting. I know he's pretty good for bringing on a pretty entertaining fight. He brings the heat. I didn't realize that he was on the Ultimate Fighter as well.
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah,
I'd actually watched this season with Henry Cejudo and Joseph Benavidez when they were the coaches, and I still don't remember them or remember Kai Kara France being on there, but I had seen some highlights from on there the other day, and honestly, his fight style hadn't changed too much since he was on The Ultimate Fighter, which he was just very heavy-handed and would just, let the leather fly. And, he's well capable of putting on a fun fight. I'm also looking forward to seeing Song Yadong return. This guy, he comes out of alpha male. I know he won his last fight against Chito Vera. That was a fight. It was very close. I know a lot of people thought that Chito Vera had won that fight, but Song Yadong, they were both landing pretty good shots against one another. I think that Song Yadong landed the more power shots, so that's why he walked away with the victory. But this dude is capable of knocking anybody out, at the touch of a button. He throws absolute heat in all of his punches. So I'm excited to see him come back as well. And then, of course, Dominic Cruz versus Casey Kenny, wanting to see where Dominic Cruz is at now, considering, coming off the title fight to Cejudo, and now he's the main event on the prelims, but seeing him on the prelims now, so it's almost like, is Dominic Cruz kind of the fighter that's setting Casey Kenny up? So Casey Kenny can now fight, a lot of the top contenders in the 135 division, or is this a test for Dominic Cruz to see how well he actually fares with the top guys in that division? I know Casey Kenny, I believe he's on a 3-fight win streak right now, so he's kind of rolling right now, and I think this is a good test for Dominic Cruz to see where he's at. So I'm excited to see, that middle portion prelims, some good fights on there. And I'm excited to see those play out.
Damn, yeah. Sorry, I caught the majority of what you were saying. There's some news that just now came out that I was reading. UFC parts ways and removes from rankings Alistair Overeem and Junior Dos Santos, man. Can you believe that?
Oh wow! Yeah, that's actually surprising. I know that they say that Alistair gets paid, a good bit, and I think that he might have been, 1 or 2 fights short of running his contract, and I know he said he wanted to fight his contract through, but wow, maybe it's time that the UFC isn't really willing to let him do it.
Yeah. Looks like the Black Beast will not get to knock out Alistair Overeem before he leaves the UFC. Anyway, shout out Overeem. We all love Overeem. Back when he was Overeem, fighting Brock Lesnar back in the day, all the way till recently. Alistair Overeem, a huge fan favorite. Hopefully, he can find his way. I'm sure he'll end up in Bellator or back over in Japan or something like that, where it all started. He'll find his way. He's entertaining. People enjoy watching over him. JDS, on the other hand, he's kind of up there, man. I don't know how more fights I would want to see him fight in. He's pretty old. He's been knocked out a lot here at the end of his career. I'm not sure if he'll sign anywhere else. Anyway, shout out to both guys. We're going to move along on our show, Dorian. The main card of UFC 259 starts off with Alexander Rakic versus Thiago Santos. There's not going to be much more to say other than this is going to be a banger. It is a fantastic way to start off the pay-per-view. 2 sluggers, 2 guys with crazy knockout power. Rakic is the bigger guy. Thiago Santos moved up from 185, so that is something that I do believe will play a part. What are your thoughts on this fight, Dorian?
It's going to be. It should play out to be a very explosive fight. 2 explosive strikers. Rakic, he had the good win coming off against Anthony Smith. Not too long ago. I know he chopped Anthony Smith's legs apart with those calf kicks, and Santos. Even though he lost the Glover fight. I thought the only part about the Glover fight for him that was really tough was just for him to get controlled on the ground the way he did, because it was obvious when he was on the feet there was no question who was the better fighter. And man, he had hurt Glover on multiple instances in that fight, so it was just kind of weird to see him hurt him as many times as he did and still end up getting controlled on the ground, getting taken down. So maybe Rakic can exploit that, but I think that Santos, I think that he's going to be able to learn from the mistake, fighting, against Glover Teixeira. And even though he had hurt him on multiple occasions, he still let Glover beat him. I think he's going to learn from that lesson, but overall, just a super fun matchup. And like you said, a great way to kick off the card.
Definitely. Like, the UFC is great about starting off these, like the main card with just that one fight that just gets you set for the night. Usually it dies down after that, but it's okay. We're going to move up to the next card. We're going to move up to the next fight. I always say that. I've caught myself say that in like 10 videos now. I call them cards instead of fights. Not on purpose, like completely by accident. I always just call them cards. Anyway, we're going to move up to the next fight. Islam Makhachev versus Drew Dober. I really don't want to talk about this too much. I believe they are propping Islam Makhachev up to beat Drew Dober here. But as you stated in your picks, Drew Dober is a live dog. Drew Dober has knockout power. Makhachev has been knocked out before. I'm actually interested to see how these guys look on weigh-in day. I'm not going to make a bet until that day, because if Islam looks super dry, like out of it, I'm definitely going to throw some money on Drew Dober, because he does have that knockout power. And Islam has shown that he can get knocked out. And right now, Drew Dober is a plus 250 underdog. Anything do you want to say about this fight, Dorian?
Yeah, sort of the same thing as far as, Drew Dober being a live dog. I do think that they're trying to prop up Makhachev, just like you said. This is kind of a display fight for him, but he was supposed to get that moment against RDA, a couple months back, but I know he ended up getting COVID, so that's when Paul Felder had to step up on short notice. But I do think, putting him on this type of card, right before the title fight start with Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, you're getting this fight, so they're putting him in a good position that he would be able to get a lot of notoriety if he's to get a win against a guy who's surging right now in Drew Dober. And I do think that the UFC is setting him up, but I do think that, Drew Dober does have knockout power, and he has good wrestling. I know that Makhachev, a lot of people would say that he might be the more well-rounded version of Khabib in terms of the wrestling and the striking. That his striking is much more polished than Khabib's was, but of course Khabib, never had to be the best striker because his wrestling was just that much more overwhelming. But in terms of the more complete fighter, a lot of people would give Islam that credit. So I think as far as matchup wise, I think the UFC did a really good job in matching up these two type of styles. And, sometimes when you get the two wrestler styles, sometimes you end up getting that type of barn burner type fight. So maybe if Drew Dober is able to keep Islam off of him, it could turn into, maybe one of those classic fights as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that being said, we are going to focus on the first title fight of the night. Peter Yan, however you want to say it, going up against Aljo, the Funk Master, Aljamain Sterling. I'm high on Aljamain Sterling. Me and you both like Aljo, an interesting character to say the least. I really hope he gets it done here. But Peter Yan, this guy, he looks to be a problem for most people in the division. Just when he very first came in the UFC, wasn't this killer that everyone thought he was. And then all of a sudden, made that turn, knocked out Uriah Faber, won the championship. Did he win the championship from Aldo, or did he defend it against Aldo?
He won it against Aldo, because that was when Cejudo had vacated it.
Yeah, so this is his first title defense of the belt, going up against the Funk Master, Aljamain Sterling. This is usually when the title changes hands. Once a person wins it, they usually drop it their next fight. holding onto the belt seems to be so much harder than actually winning the belt. So if anyone is going to take this from Petr Yan, right now is the time. Does Aljamain Sterling have the tools to do it? I think yes. What do you think about this fight, Dorian?
I do think that Sterling has what it takes to be able to win the fight. I do think it is a very great matchup, because I think Petr Yan's style, he's straightforward. He's got that Thai boxing style where he just holds his hands up and he just shells his face and he stands right in front of you, gets in range, and he just throws them sharp punches. He doesn't loop any of his punches. All of his punches are straight, but he's throwing them with mean intentions. He's trying to take your head off of each one. And, his boxing style, I think it's a little bit something different that Sterling hasn't seen. I think one of the things that Petr Yan has as well, is he actually has really good takedown defense. You can see that Uriah Faber, and I know Faber's a little bit older now, but when they fought a couple of years ago, Faber had really struggled getting a takedown. He had trouble getting inside. Every time he would get inside, he would either get caught with a big shot, or if he did kind of get in a position to wrestle, he had no chance of taking Petr Yan down. I haven't seen Petr Yan really controlled or wrestled too much. I know that he's only lost one fight, and the one fight that he lost, he actually ended up redeeming the loss that he had when he was fighting in Russia. So I know that he's pretty damn tough overall. And it's going to be a great fight. I do believe that. But I think as far as the tools that Aljamain possesses, he can throw a bunch of wild fights. The difference that Yan has over Sterling is the power. Sterling doesn't have the striking power that Yan has, but I think as far as the diversity of strikes with the kicks, elbows, knees, awkward strikes from awkward positions, things of that nature, I think that Sterling possesses a lot of that stuff. And I know a lot of people were killing Sterling for having a low takedown percentage. I think his takedown percentage was like in the 30s or something like that. But it's really not more of how many takedowns he lands, is if he gets the one that he needs to secure position.
Or and if he even goes for it. Like, look at the Pedro Munoz fight. He didn't even go for the takedown. He just pieced Pedro Munoz up with spinny shit that entire fight.
Yeah, he hit him with a bunch of spinning stuff and things like that. But I think the difference with Munoz is, his jiu-jitsu background, the way that he can lock in, the different leg locks and his guillotine and things of that nature. Sterling kept the fight standing for a reason. He didn't want to take the chance to go to the ground when he knew that he was faster than Munoz overall. I think as far as speed-wise, Petr Yan is a very quick fighter. He doesn't loop his punches like Pedro Munoz does. Pedro Munoz can kind of get into a brawl. Petr Yan can as well, but man, he's good about, landing his big shots when he wants to. So I think that's one thing that Sterling's going to have to do is, have good foot movement, move around a lot. But I do think with his diversity of striking, plus with the ace in his pocket, with the striking or with the grappling, wrestling, his jiu-jitsu, being able to get different leg locks, different submissions, things of that nature. I think that's what gives him the upper hand, and I think that's why Sterling's going to be able to win the fight.
Okay, cool. This fight is split right down the middle. Both fighters minus 110. So nothing really. The odds makers aren't giving us anything to play with there. I really hope Aljo gets it done. I really want Aljo to be the champ at 135, at least for the time being. And then he can come back and fight Dorian's favorite fighter, TJ Dillashaw. Anyway, we are going to move up to the next fight, the second title fight on the card. Amanda, the Lioness Nunes, going up against Megan Anderson. My girlfriend calls her my sister. That's her favorite thing to do. Oh, she's your sister. I'm like, oh, what are we? 7 years old. We have the same last name. Okay. Anyway, Megan Anderson, massive female, definitely not making 135 anytime soon. 6'1", I think, something like that. Can submit
6
you,
foot.
can knock you out, has tools to do both. Amanda Nunes, on the other hand, do I even have to say anything else besides resume? Like, look at everything that she's done. Came in, aside from the hiccups here and there to the Kat Zingannus, things like that, that's when Amanda Nunes was young. This version of Amanda Nunes, I don't know if anyone's going to beat her. The way she came in and just boxed Ronda Rousey's face off, the way she knocked out Holly Holm, the 2 wins against Valentino, one kind of but overall done nothing but dominate over the past few years. And there's just nothing else you can say about how amazing she is as a fighter. On the other hand, Megan Anderson did kind of get dominated on the ground by Felicia Spencer. Like Amanda Nunes' last fight, and you saw what she did there. She didn't finish Felicia Spencer, but I almost feel like she could have at any point of that fight. But when I think back to Felicia Spencer dominating Megan Anderson, it just gives me a little hesitation, but just to spice the show up, just to throw the curveball, and because my girlfriend swears she's my sister, I am going for Megan Anderson in this fight. I'm taking the underdog. I like what she's working with. Hopefully she can dethrone the GOAT in Amanda Nunes. What do you think about this fight?
Yeah, I think I don't want to call it a get busy fight for Amanda Nunes because, you know, the 145 division, I think they're trying their best to keep it going. I think it's going to be really hard to try to maintain that division when you only have, you know, 4 or 5 different fighters. Yeah, well, and I think the toughest part as well is, you know, she's a champ at 135, but I think that 135 is also having trouble, you know, coming up with a number 1 contender besides Holly Holm and Jermaine Durandamy. You know, they are still the top 2 fighters in that division, and Amanda Nunes has beaten both fighters, finished both of them as well. I know Amanda Nunes didn't finish GDR in the last fight, but she did in the first fight they have fought, and finished Holly Holm. So, yeah, I mean, I guess they're just trying to keep Amanda Nunes busy, so they're having her fight at 145, and Megan Anderson's won 2 fights in a row, so why not? But I think it's just more of a kind of a get busy fight, for lack of a better term, for Amanda Nunes here. You know, I kind of think the same thing as you as far as Megan Anderson goes, as far as the wrestling defense. You know, I think about how she got controlled by Felicia Spencer, and I think that that's going to be trouble for Megan Anderson. I don't think that Amanda Nunes is going to be going for as many submissions. You know, I think Felicia Spencer, as far as submission-wise, she might be a little bit more willing to go for those than Amanda Nunes is, but Amanda Nunes can definitely go for some good ground and pound. If the submission presents itself to her, she'll take it, sort of like a rear naked choke or something like that. But I think that you know, she could display some good control with her grappling, and then be able to wear out Megan Anderson as the fight goes. And I just say that Amanda Nunes, I just don't see how she doesn't get it done.
Okay, fair enough. Just want to throw that out there right now. Megan Anderson, a plus 750 underdog. I mean, would it hurt to throw $5 on it? I mean, like,
no, absolutely not. I mean, hell, everything. Whenever you have that big of a spread, this sport is so crazy, man. You never know. Because Megan Anderson is her background is kickboxing, so she does have some good striking. I know she's got one of the knockouts she had on her winning streak. It was pretty brutal as well. It was a 1-punch knockout. So she's definitely capable of placing that knockout shot. I just don't think that. I think Amanda Nunes has just gotten to the point in her career where she's just too smart to get in those types of situations. And I think there's just, again, no way that she doesn't win this fight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Amanda Nunes should get it done here. But as I said, I'm definitely going to toss some money on Anderson to win. maybe even Anderson to win by sub. You know, why not? Because she does have the tools to sub people. I know, but can you imagine what those odds are? Like, they have to be plus 1,500, you know? To put $5 on that, hey, you know, I'll waste $10 to maybe cash out for the night, you know? Yeah, anyway, we're going to talk about going up last here, the final fight of the night. I cannot wait for this fight. I am so stoked for this fight. We haven't seen a double champ, whatever you want to call it. We haven't seen one of these fights in a little bit now. Israel Adesanya, the 185-pound king, stepping up to fight Jan Blachowicz, the 205-pound champion at this time, just won the belt from Dom Reyes. It's an interesting time. I believe Izzy has the tools to get it done here. But on the other hand, you've got Polish power, man. This dude has proven time and time again that if you come up to 205 from 185, you're going to have problems. And he is the number one gatekeeper. You saw what happened to Luke Rockhold last. But at the same time, Thiago Santos did knock him out after coming up to 205. One thing that just stands out to me in this fight, I feel like this fight is tailor-made for Izzy. Jan comes forward, throws punches. This is what Dana White has wanted out of every one of Israel's opponents for the past 3 fights. Dana White wants Israel's opponent to come at him and throw hooks, throw punches, and just keep coming at him. But for some reason, Israel's past 2 opponents haven't done that. Look at the Yoel fight. He stood there. Look at the Paulo Costa fight after a night of whining, drinking, whatever he was doing. He stood there. I believe that this fight is tailor-made for Israel. I think Jan's going to come forward, throw punches, and Israel's going to be able to do what Izzy does, evade and counter. I'm going Izzy TKO by the end of... I'm going Izzy TKO. I'm going to guess under 2.5, man. I think he just gets him out of there quick. It's going to be something that Jan hasn't fought before. What are your thoughts on this fight?
I mean, I think you kind of know which way I'm leaning.
We got the shirt here.
Gotta check out the shirt from Walkouts to Knockouts. So gotta hold it down for the guy. But
and in your background there too.
Yep, got the poster in the background. So yeah, so you guys know which way I'm leaning. But I do think that, you know, Jan does present some problems for Izzy. I think one of the things that he does possess, of course, we all know the Polish power. You know, he can turn the lights out at any minute. You know, we haven't really seen anyone kind of press the action against Izzy. So you could say Robert Whittaker maybe, but he didn't really, you know, put Izzy in any trouble. You know, no one has really pushed the pace on him like Kelvin Gastelum had been able to. I think one of the things that Jan can do, and he gave Reyes some problems with it when they fought, is, you know, just kind of blitzing forward at him. Just blitzing forward at Izzy, you know, maybe when he's not expecting it. Because I know that, you know, Jan at the end of his combinations against Reyes, when Reyes was getting out of there, Jan kept throwing the body kick, and Reyes' body was... Yeah, it was after the third kick, dude. His body was absolutely crushed, and it's because Reyes was trying to get out of the pocket, and every time he would go to exit, Jan kept throwing that body kick. And there was
a spot on him like this big that was just, he kept hitting it over. And
it was the same exact spot that he kept landing the kick too. So Izzy is going to be one that wants to try to keep the range and not stay in the pocket. I do think that's one weapon that Jan has that he can kind of you know, get Izzy in trouble with if he is able to land enough of those body kicks. Because, you know, and one of the things that's kind of got me a little worried for Izzy is he's saying that he can weigh in as low as 193 pounds. I have to find that a little crazy that you're going to weigh in 10 pounds underweight for the weight class that you're going to be fighting for the title at, and your opponent is potentially going to walk in there about 230 pounds. Jan's a big guy, man. He's not a small dude whatsoever, and I think that, in kickboxing, he might be able to get away with those weight disadvantages, but guess what? There's not a lot of grappling going involved. Jan's a very smart fighter, and I think that he can also employ some of his wrestling that he's been able to pick up on if the opportunity presents itself. And if he's going in there, 30, 40 pounds heavier than Izzy, then that's going to be something that can possibly be used against Izzy to where Jan can, turn the tide in his favor. But I do think overall, Izzy is the more complete striker. I think he's the more polished fighter. He's the faster fighter. I think overall, he's not going to get himself in any danger. He's going to do enough to win the fight. He's the perfect counter fighter. So if Jan isn't going to press the action, and if Izzy can stay on the outside and land jabs and leg kicks, sort of similar to what he did to Yoel Romero, he will absolutely do that to become the double champ. I think something like that might actually end up happening. I think this fight doesn't go with as much fireworks as people are expecting. I think it's going to be more of a technical chess match. I think it's going to be Jan having trouble getting in range with Izzy, and I think it's going to be Izzy kind of picking him apart from the outside, because he knows that if he hangs too close inside, that you get caught in a brawl with Jan, and it's not going to end well for you. So I think that Izzy is going to take the smart approach, keep the outside, land the jab, land the leg kicks, land a few body kicks. Keep the distance, and I think he ends up coasting to a decision.
Okay. Izzy by decision. That's surprising. I just want to leave this topic with one final sentence. Israel Adesanya is the most polished striker that the sport of mixed martial arts has ever seen. There's no one that has put on a display better than him. This dude has all the tools. He'll hit you from all the limbs. If you look when he knocked out Paulo Costa, it looks like he didn't even do it. It looked like he just grazed his cheek and Costa was on the ground out. But the dude is so precise. He knows exactly where to hit you. The dude is just the best. He's the best striker. I am definitely excited for this weekend's upcoming fight card. Anything else on this card, Dorian?
Just ready for the pay-per-view this weekend, man. I do, even though I was kind of pooping on 3 title fights on the card, man, the card is absolutely stacked from top to bottom, and it's going to be a hell of a card this weekend, and a hell of fights that are lined up on the prelims as well. And man, I can't wait. I cannot wait until Saturday.
All right, so that will lead us to our last topic of the week. It's a new one. Dorian doesn't know the question. The WTF moment of the week. I am going to ask Dorian a random question. He does not know what the question is. Here it comes, Dorian. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Do you know what Dagestani basketball is? I'm sure you've seen Khabib play it with all his,
Yeah, they run with the ball in their hand. They don't dribble it at all. They play sort of similar to football style.
Yeah, almost like rugby plus basketball, something like that. So my question for you is, you have to assemble a team of yourself plus 4 in a team of Dagestani basketball. Who are your other 4 teammates? Only 2 of them can be heavyweights.
Wait, so having to build a Dagestani?
Yeah, you have to play a game. You have to play a game of Dagestani basketball. You have yourself plus 4 teammates. What other 4 UFC fighters are you picking to be your teammates? And only 2 of them can be heavyweights.
So do they have to be from Dagestan? Do they have to be from
anyone
area?
in the UFC.
Or?
You're just playing Dagestani basketball. It could be anyone in the UFC.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. Yeah, I like this. So yeah, I say one of them. Man, I think you would want kind of like some speed on your side, but then you would also want some type of strength. You want a complete lineup. You don't want to just have a bunch of 10 foot tall guys. And then you don't want a bunch of you don't want a bunch of Stephen Shrews, and then you also don't want a bunch of Joseph Benavidez either. So you want to kind of find that good mix of everybody in between. I would say probably one, Francis Ngannou. You got to go Francis just because that's big Shaquille O'Neal in the paint right there, man. I'm throwing the ball down to him and letting him go for it every time. Man, that is really tough. I would say give me John Jones.
Okay.
The athletes in the family.
Yeah.
He's a super athletic dude himself. Give me him. Give me Michelle Pereira. I think the athleticism is give me the athleticism as well. With his jumping ability and everything. Man, could you imagine playing and one ball with Michelle Pereira, throwing an alley-oop to him and letting him go up and do a cartwheel in the air and slam dunk it? So, I would actually really like to see that. And man, I would say you got to have the one gritty tough guy on your team. The one who's willing to get in there, get dirty. Give me Justin Gaethje, man. He's you want to talk about Junkyard Dog. You talk about Justin Gaethje, man. He's getting in there. He's getting gritty. He's going for all the loose balls that are rolling on the ground. He's definitely able to put his shoulder down and blow some people over. So, give me Francis, John Jones, Michelle Pereira, and give me Justin Gaethje.
That is the Dagestani basketball team of my man, Dorian Rose over here.
We're taking over.
I guess it's my turn. Let me throw at you who I think would be the most dominant Dagestani basketball team. Number one, I'm going Walt Harris. Walt Harris has a basketball college background. Is a big guy, can move around on the court. That's my Shaquille O'Neal. Number two, we're going down to light heavyweight. I'm going Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker's an interesting character. It's almost like your like Pereira pick, it's kind of like the same thing. Johnny Walker's just a little bit bigger, not quite as crazy. Number three for me, I have to go Kevin Holland, man. Dude looks like he can ball. I don't know what it is. The Trailblazer, I'm a fan of him. I'm picking Kevin Holland. And my last one, my short stack on the team. How can you not go John Dodson? He's not even in the UFC anymore, but I'm going John Dodson, dude. The dude is quick. I'll look at him to just run around, snatch a ball, and be out. John Dodson is my Dagestani, smallest player on the Dagestani basketball team. Just kind of fun. See what I'm talking about? Kind of fun. Just a good way to end the show. Interesting topic. So next week it is going to be up to you to bring something to the table to ask me something like that.
I'm gonna bring the heat.
Yeah, I hear it in the background. That's why I've been kind of smiling for the past 10 minutes. I keep hearing it in the background. I'm like, that's how.
Of course, it's World War III going off in the background.
Yeah, man. You have a whole jazz band outside your door. Anyway,
I'm in the middle of New Orleans right now.
I know, man. I know. So, anything else just overall that you want to talk about before we get out of here, man?
Nah, I'd say we pretty much got everything wrapped up, man. And again, cannot wait until Saturday, man. It's gonna be a hella card.
Definitely going to be a great night of fights. I cannot wait. I am super stoked. But that's all we have, guys. Make sure, once again, if you haven't liked this video yet and you watched all the way through, what are you doing? Put a thumbs up on the video. And if you're not subscribed yet, help us out. Subscribe to the channel. And if you want to share this with anyone that you know, please do so. Don't even ask them. Just go ahead and send it to them. We'll appreciate it. Tell them it is a special gift from the Golden Octagon MMA channel. You get to hear us talk about fights for damn near an hour and a half at this point. But that is all that we have for today, guys. Make sure you stay golden. We'll catch you next week.